The Closing Bell, Bloomberg's comprehensive cross-platform coverage of the U.S. market close, starts right now.
And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick here with Alix Steel, taking you through the Closing Bell. It's a global simulcast, starting now with Scarlet Fu joining us in the TV studio, Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec in the radio booth, as we bring all of our audiences across all of our platforms together, including our partnership with those folks on YouTube. Carol Massar,
yes.
Another interesting day here, giving back a lot of the gains from yesterday on the tech side, but on the small cap side, that rally continues on.
Yeah, interesting to see. We just had a guest on who just talked about the move up that we've seen, certainly in the small caps, the rotation that's happening. How he said, was it like 70% of the names in the Russell
2000
are now above their 200-day moving average, just showing the momentum that we've seen in that space.
Yeah, that rotation continuing. That's Jimmy Lee, the founder and CEO over at the Wealth Consulting Group. I don't know about you guys, but earnings season in full swing. We are awaiting numbers from Texas Instruments, Alphabet, Tesla, Capital One, Visa. And that's just the ones reporting in the next few minutes.
Yeah, that's the heart of earnings season, right? This is when we start to get a narrative on what's going on. What's going on within equities, and I'm saying this now because I don't know if we're going to have time to get to it, is even though we're looking at modest losses in the S&P 500, by and large, most of the sectors in the S&P are down. And the only groups that are bucking the decline, materials and financials, and barely at that.
Yeah, and energy just keeps rolling over to the downside here. It looks like it's having a hard time catching a floor today. I think it's almost $6 trillion worth of market cap comes out with earnings today. We got a bunch in the morning, and now we wait for the afternoon.
On a cross-asset basis here, we should point out, looking at a mixed day for yields, pretty much down on the shorter end of the curve by a basis point or two, a drop in Bitcoin. A little bit of weakness that we're seeing in the dollar on some levels, particularly when it comes through some of the more developed market countries, and a drop that we're seeing in oil as well. As for equities, you're seeing red across the screen for the Dow, the NASDAQ, and the S&P 500. Fractional losses on the day, 0.1% on the Dow, about 0.2 on the S&P, and barely, not even a whole 0.1% on the NASDAQ. Your outperformer on the day, that belongs to the S&P 400 mid caps, up 0.2%, and the Russell 2000 small caps, up 1%.
All right, so a little bit of outperformance by the small caps. As you mentioned, though, Romaine, S&P ending the day, little change. As Scarlett mentioned earlier, though, we've seen most names and most groups lower today. 315 names in the S&P trading lower today. Scarlett, 186 to the upside.
Yeah, you know, I mentioned two groups bucking the decline. Actually, it's turned into three. You have consumer discretionary, unchanged right now, but just in the green column. Materials and financials are the three groups that did advance, and as Alix mentioned, energy down 1.6% on the day.
All right, guys, as we await those earnings, quick check on some of the individual gainers. GE up almost 6% in today's session. Second quarter profit was a jump, raising its guidance for the year. So we did see some outperformance there. Pentair, also another one that outperformed, up almost 9%, a top gainer in the S&P 500. And this company reported second quarter sales and adjusted EPS that topped expectations. All right, let's get to it. Texas Instruments out, folks. A read on the semiconductor space. So let's get to it. Second quarter revenue, it is smack on, $3.82 billion. That's exactly what the street was expecting. Second quarter EPS, $1.22 a share versus $1.87. That's year-over-year comparisons. Let's get to the outlook. Third quarter revenue, $3.94 billion to $4.26 billion. The estimate is $4.14 billion. So it's up about 2.2% here in the post-market trade here, Tim. So investors at least liking certainly the outlook. Some maybe surprise to the upside there.
Okay, in the press release, we actually are getting some more numbers talking about the SG&A spend over the last 12 months, investing $3.7 billion in R&D and SG&A, investing $5 billion in CapEx, also returning $4.9 billion to shareholders. Revenue did decrease 16% from the same quarter a year ago and increased sequentially. Industrial and automotive continued to decline sequentially, while all other end markets grew, Scarlett.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the outlook here once again, $3.94 billion to $4.26 billion. That's a wide range, but within there, the midpoint is $4.1 billion, and the consensus estimate was $4.14. So if you want to split hairs, it might be a touch lighter than what analysts had been anticipating. EPS for this quarter, the third quarter, $1.24 to $1.48. The consensus was $1.38. And we do have Alphabet crossing as well. Let's get you the second quarter revenue numbers. $84.74 billion. That is higher than what was anticipated, which was $84.37 billion. billion. Second quarter earnings per share of $1.89 does top the consensus estimate of $1.84. In terms of the ad revenue, that's the lion's share of the company here, $64.6 billion. Alix, analysts were expecting $64.5 billion, so better than expected for its core business.
So just taking a look at the YouTube ad revenue, if we just break that out, that's coming in at $8.66 billion. That is a little lighter than the estimates, though, but that cloud revenue just really delivering, that coming in at $10.35 billion. So just as a broad stroke for that. I'm waiting to see about the gross margins. I don't see them out yet, but I'm sure they are, but we have to dig through them.
Tesla earnings also crossing the wire right now. Let's walk you through them. Their second quarter revenue coming in at $25.5 billion. That beats the average of street estimates of roughly $24.6 billion. Adjusted EPS, though, is a miss. EPS coming in at 52 cents a share. The street was looking for 60 cents a share. Operating income also coming in light, 161. Right now, the street was looking for $1.81 billion. The company giving some guidance here about their cost reduction efforts, saying that their focus remains on company-wide cost reductions, and also says that its plans for new vehicles remain on track. Of course, that will be much more of the conversation when we get to that conference call, less about these numbers and much more here about the model lineup and what changes, if any, Elon Musk has in store.
Yeah, that's what investors want to see. They want to know what new cars are coming, because those cars, to a lot of investors and observers, are getting a little long in the tooth. Shares of Tesla unchanged right now. They were down as much as 1.4% in the after hours, which is what we're seeing right now, about 2% in the after hours. Focus remains on company-wide cost reduction. As Romaine said, the plans for new vehicles remain on track. The sooner the better for investors, though. Second quarter revenue coming in above estimates at $25.5 billion. Estimates were for $24.63 billion. Gross margin coming in above estimates, too, at 18% versus estimates of 17.4%.
All right, folks, let's go back to Alphabet, because this is certainly one that's going to be possibly an indicator of what we're going to see from other names in the space, the big cap space, and certainly the advertising. So among the standouts, among the headlines, we did see second quarter revenue. That was up. Google Cloud revenue. Keep in mind that they are behind what we're seeing in some of the other big players. Microsoft, I'm thinking about Amazon, but their cloud revenue was a beat, $10.35 billion versus $10.09 billion. We're continuing to see Alphabet up about 2.3%. Again, second quarter revenue overall, ex-tax, $71.36 billion. Again, that's a beat. The estimate on the street, Alex, was $70.7 billion. Again, Alphabet in the aftermarket up about 1.2%.
All right, taking a look at Capital One here. Their total deposits for the second quarter beat estimates, coming in at $351.44 billion. So beats by a smidge, by about $6 billion there. You also have adjusted earnings coming in slightly better. Net revenue coming in a little weaker than estimated, but still right around there, coming in at $9.51 billion. Those shares unchanged right now.
All right, let's take a look at Visa, also reporting results here. Third quarter adjusted EPS, $2.51. That does top the consensus estimate of $2.43. And right now, we're looking at the stock moving slightly higher in the after-hours trade as we wait for more details across.
Yeah, and I'd be interested to see get a better read on consumer spending. They talk a lot, of course, on the conference call about the complexion of where those transactions are made here. So it'll be interesting to see whether some of the concerns that were raised by the earnings that we got out of names like Kimberly-Clark, out of UPS earlier today, whether that's indicative of a broader slowdown in consumer spending.
Hey, guys, I'm still digging into what's going on over at Tesla, because robotaxi update is also what investors are looking for. The timing of the robotaxi deployment, according to the company, depends on technological advancement and regulatory approval. They're working vigorously on this opportunity, given the outsized potential value. As Ronald Ludlow points out on the live blog, they don't see a date on the robotaxi event or a timeline for rollout. But you will recall a few weeks ago, we did report that the company has pushed the rollout by a couple of months.
All right, so Tesla down 2.7% here in the aftermarket. Another headline coming from the release, Tesla, that is, expects a sequential increase in production in the third quarter, right? This is important to kind of get an idea of what they are anticipating in terms of demand, what they can kick out. But again, keep in mind the big headline, and maybe that's why investors are disappointed, that second quarter adjusted EPS, 52 cents a share. Alex, that's 8 cents light.
All right, I'm taking a look at Mattel here. Those numbers coming as well. Let me just check it here. EPS beat estimates for Mattel, coming in at 19 cents a share versus 10 cents. The estimate was for 7 cents. Net sales coming in just over $1 billion. That's down by about 0.7% year on year. And gross billings coming in at $1.2 billion.
Yeah, we're going to be talking with the Mattel CEO, Ynon Kreiz, tomorrow on our show. I do want to mention NASDAQ 100 E-mini futures in the aftermarket. Little change, a little bit lower, just kind of watching how this might ultimately, all of this, especially Alphabet's results, might impact. I will point out Texas Instruments up about 4%, so certainly interesting to watch the semiconductor area. All right, guys, lots of news, earning news coming here after the close. That's a wrap. Our cross-platform radio, TV, YouTube, Bloomberg Originals, we call it Closing Bell. We will see you again, same time, same place tomorrow. Alix, we know she's going to go away, but she's going to be back with us tomorrow as well. All right, everybody, that's a wrap.